Hi, my name's Steve, and I run the front-end engineering team at Temporal, and this is a course on Figma targeted for developers. We'll cover things like how to use a design tool using concepts we already understand from implementing those designs in code. We'll learn how to use Figma variables and shared styles to create components that are easy to implement. More importantly, in this course, we'll learn how to interface with the designers on our team to make both of our lives easier and both sides of the equation more productive in the process. Let's talk a little bit about kind of just moving stuff around and getting stuff aligned, right? And so Figma does a lot to make your life easier. It's not like you have to have like an eagle eye where you can see literally everything. In this case, you notice you go and drag something that, like, for the most part, let's zoom in a little bit here. As we get close to another object, you'll see that it begins to snap. And if, like, on my MacBook trackpad, there's like tactile feedback when something like is snapping into place. Your mileage may vary. You can see, okay, if they are kind of, equidistant from the next one near it, it'll give you a few of those things to kind of snap into place. You can also hold Option, for instance, and measure things. We'll see that in the next session as well, the distance between various units. But sometimes it makes sense to, like, hey, I have a whole bunch of stuff and I want to kind of align it, right? So in any of those cases, you can, like, choose any of these options over here and, like, begin to align some stuff as well. So let's actually take a look at that in some use cases where, with 3 boxes, not that hard to drag it around. Let's up the ante to 5, right? Could I sit there and, like, try to get them all equidistant over time? Absolutely, I could. Do I want to? No, I don't. So what I can do is kind of make use of some of the initial tools. So here I can select all of them just by clicking and dragging. You could hold Shift and click on each one of them individually. Whatever makes you the happiest, go for it. And then we can align it either, I don't want to do any of these because these are, like, on the vertical axes. But if I want to get these all on the same horizontal axis, I can do align to the top, the vertical centers of each, or to the bottom. In this case, it doesn't really matter which one I pick, but I could theoretically align them all vertically centered. And that gets me most of the way there. But you can kind of see there's some, like, different spacing in here. And you'll look, I get this icon here that is very similar to the icon there. And there's tidy up. There's also, if I just want to do it on one axis, I can distribute the vertical spacing, which are all on the same axis in that place, or the horizontal spacing, at which point they all even out. And one of the really cool things that you'll see is when they are even, and it knows they're even, it gives you the ability to adjust that either manually, so I can change this to, like, 32 if I want, or I can kind of grab, like, in the middle here and, like, drag as well. So you can do that either on the X or the Y axis. You can also, if you have maybe like a grid of things, you can go ahead, like, and get this all in place where you can see that, like, it'll try to guess what I need. So we've got the vertical spacing and the horizontal spacing. Neither one of these is going to do what I want. Right, that's not what I need. So what I can do is this tidy up will do the best to kind of, like, arrange stuff in the closest it can to a grid. And the thing you'll notice here now is because things are evenly distributed on both kind of the X and the Y axis, I can actually adjust either one of those. And I can either change the number, or you can see I get this little cursor like this. I can do this motion. And there's a lot of tactile feedback from the trackpad, and it feels great. And kind of align stuff in a way that makes sense. Here we can do the same thing like this. And those will be, like, when everything is uniform. One of the things that we'll find out in our time together is there's a lot to love about Figma. One of the kind of, like, slightly tedious things is, like, certain features will only appear when they're applicable. And, like, if it's not a place where you can do that thing, you just won't see the tool. But the presence of the tool means you can do the thing. As well as, like I said before, I can adjust the spacing here. There are lots of options, but that, again, only happens when they are in an even distribution like this. All right, so nothing particularly special here. What we can do is we can hold Shift and grab a bunch of these. One thing you'll notice is, like, if you're not getting the thing that you want, and I'll talk about this a little bit later too, you can hold Command, and it'll be literally the thing under the mouse. So, like, if you're not always getting exactly, because it's trying, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of stacked layers. You can hold Command. You can hold Shift to select multiple things. Here, I can try this out, and it will give me at least the vertical spacing, and then I could theoretically put them all on the same axis like this. Similarly, I can do this here as well. It will try to even them out like that, but then I can also put them on the same axis. One thing I want to talk about is this works for an existing type system. This works for an existing color palette, right? However, I made this color palette, and you can too. And you can make your own type system, right? Using something called math, right? Now, I'm a liberal arts major, so I will not be doing the math. I will be employing computers to do math for me. So let's go ahead and try out, there's, for the typefaces, one that I like is called type scales. And you can run it, and you can deal with the fact that my screen is a lot smaller than it was before. Let's see. Actually, I can see all the parts that are important. There's like a few more fonts down here, but my increased resolution is hurting our feelings right now. But what's cool about it, you can set the base size for the rem. 16 is like standard, so we'll keep that. You can choose the way that the fonts scale. There seems to be some kind of music reference going on here. You pick major third, you can pick minor third. Golden ratio, if that makes you happy. You can also see how all of this stuff matters. You can pick the line height, how many sizes above the base you want, and how many below that you want, right? And whether or not you want to round the values or not. Like, I don't ever want to live in a world with a 61.488 pixel font. So I'm going to choose to round the values. And we can hit generate. And it creates a frame with all of those font sizes ready to go. And for the trick that I wanted to show you before, we can grab each of these, right? If you hold Command, that trick we saw in the beginning, as long as you don't get the, like, what is this? Oh, I had another frame hiding under there. Get rid of that. If I hold Command, I can grab just the nested ones, right? And like, so now I've got each one of those. And like, theoretically, if I ran styler, I would get a bunch of styles called type at 9, type at 12, type at whatever. If I wanted to bulk rename these things, that's where I can hit Command R. And I could say, instead of type at, we can say like, whatever. And like, you can like rename the numbers if you want to, but you can rename these to whatever you want. And then you could theoretically run styler on them. Right, created 9 new typefaces. There's one for bulk replacing fonts. Like, this will do it in, I believe, enter is the default one. Now they're a style, so if you need to adjust it, yeah, it's enter. You can also replace the font, stuff along those lines, right? Like, ideally, as an engineer, like, the design team probably has come up with some kind of typography system. But if you find yourself at a startup playing designer because you are the only front-end engineer, like I was like 3 years ago, like, this is good because, like, have I read a book on like type systems and color theory? Yes. Do I really trust myself? I don't. And so like, this will go ahead and kind of get you some of the basics as well. And then you can use some of these tools to like bulk create the styles that you want. And like, you might have to do some little manual renaming, but like, the overall time investment is not that much, particularly if you don't have a bunch of people staring at you. You kind of just do it during something else. It's, it's a little bit of clicking, but you can kind of like get through it all pretty quickly. There's still a piece of me that wants to like slay this beast, but I'm not going to right now. All these seem like bad ideas. Okay, but the same basic approach works for any styles that we want to create in bulk. The other thing we can do is to create a color system. There are a lot of different tools for this. The one that I like is, again, I happen to use Tailwind at work. None of this is Tailwind specific. I mean, that one is definitely Tailwind specific, but this one is not. This is comes from a website called uicolors.app. right? Which you can also go visit. But what this does is it allows you to pick a color, right? And then it creates all the various shades for you. And what's even nicer is it can generate a color guide like these ones that I tried to reverse engineer in failure. And it will also create either the styles or the variables for you as well, right? And so you can kind of define that base color, tweak it however you want, and then like have it say, hey, create styles. It will give it a default name. In this case, I've used multiple like color palette apps and they all will give the same color, the same name. So there's clearly some JavaScript library that everyone uses. But like, we're going to talk a little bit about color names versus semantic names in a little bit, right? But like one would argue, in no world do you really want this called fountain blue. You either want to call it like primary, brand, information, danger, error, or blue. Fountain blue seems oddly specific unless you have 17 other blues. So we can call this blue, and we say create the styles. And you can see that it generated a color palette, much like the one that I accidentally tried to have us reverse engineer. And then if we go into the color styles, you can see that I created all of these blues that we can now use without ever having to think about the hex code ever again. And again, it also helps making sure that we have consistency across the designs, because it is a lot easier to accidentally just drag and drop that little like color wheel in a design than it is to look up yet another hex code, right? And implement that stuff, right? Like it's not that big a deal when you're working on the design. It's a big deal when you're implementing it. You can take any component and swap it out with another one, right? So let's go ahead, and if I look in here, I have some icons, right? And what I'm going to do is I am going to create a whole bunch of components out of these icons. And that is very easy to do. If you look, there's a bunch of icons. I can go ahead and select all of these frames. And you'll look, oh, I have a little caret here now. What does that do? I can create one component of all of these icons. I can create multiple components. That's the one we want. Or I can create a component set, which there is a time and a place for. This is not the time. I mean, I'm going to do it in this page in a second, so it is the place. It's just not the time. So we'll create multiple components. And oh, look, they all get these fun little diamonds. And if I go into this page, you can see here are all of my components. And I got that button from earlier, right? That I nested in some insane way. So I'm going to go to the main component. And we're going to update this button so that it supports having an icon, right? And the ability to like swap out said icons. So let's actually change this button a little bit. Let's make it like, let's start by default having a secondary button here. So we'll give this one a stroke of a little bit of a darker color. We'll change the fill to a lighter color. And we'll change the label to that same darker color, right? Okay, cool, we got a button, and we would love the idea of having an icon in here too, right? So what we can do is, I mean, this is auto layout, so most of it's there. What I can do is I can drag in this icon, and that's a little big. Right, and so now, could I change the stroke on the, as I said before, like selecting all of the same property is great when you need to change the stroke on a bunch of icons. Ask me how I know. Right, but we'll ignore that for a moment. And we've got this button. And so the problem with this button is that like they're all going to have this bug on them. And maybe I want other icons on the button. Maybe I want that cool skull that I made. I didn't make it. I stole it from Lucide, which is open source. And I want to be able to swap them out, right? And so what I can do is I can actually go ahead and see this, I have that bug in there. I can say, create an instant swap property, right? We'll call it icon, Maybe by default it's bug. You can choose a different one if you want. Plus sign, skull. Cool. And then you can do this idea. So you can swap any component out, any nested component out with another component, right? But what you can do is, since that's a lot of power, Figma doesn't give you a great way. Like, you can get away with like a lot of stuff here, but what you can do, you can't stop people from doing certain components, but you can say, here's the preferred list that I will show you. So you can go in here and it's like, hey, actually, you can swap it out with either any icon, or depending on what your designers want, only a certain subset of icons are right for the button, a certain subset of icons are for the nav, a certain subset of icons are here. You can basically select those icons. So we can say check. We're not going to have a hashtag button. Oh, link button, that seems good. Info, I don't know, success, great. So we have this in place. So now I've got my button here. And if I go, I can drag another button in. And you can see that now this button has the option of swapping it out with the different icons, right? The other thing I could do is that thing we saw before, I'll show you from the other angle, which is even if we look at this layer, the skull, that goes up to that component. Let's see, we want this layer. We can also say show icon. So that's at the false by default. And so now I have a button where I can say, show me the icon. And if we show the icon, what icon you want.